It's your girl, Patrina Dixon, your favorite money coach. I'm here today with an amazing guest, and I'm going to tell you about him in a second. But before we get started, for those of you that are used to being here with me, thank you for rocking with Patrina Dixon of the Money Exchange. I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you providing feedback. And because of you, we now are dropping our episodes the first and the third Thursday of every month. And we have a schedule. We have a month of everything that we're doing. It's on the same topic. So I love the feedback that you have given, and I heard you, and we have incorporated that into the show. So the first and third Thursday of every month. The other thing I wanted to let you know, I will be dropping some solo episodes because you've asked for that as well. So I'll pepper them in where it makes sense. So make sure you're tuning in for those as well. So for those of you that are new, my name is Patrina Dixon, and I am the It's My Money lady. It's My Money is my trademark brand, and I teach things all personal finance and grants for small business owners. You can find out more about me and all relative to grants down below. Now, this episode aligns to what I call my happy place, is ensuring that people have tools and resources to help them better manage their money. And we're going to incorporate one of my favorite tools into this conversation when we talk to my amazing guest. And without further ado, Matt, let the people know who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Patrina. So my name is Matt Tarr. I'm a co-host of the Coastify Couple podcast with my wife. We talk about money and relationships and building money-savvy kids. And I'm also a business development leader for Qube Money, which is a program that I use myself. And so we're going to talk a little bit all about that and why we decided to use this tool over others and kind of our journey making our way towards financial independence.
I love it. And you see how he so matter-of-factly said financial independence. So for those of you who don't know, FI equals financial independence. And I know, because I know you're going to say that, that means something different for everybody. But we're going to talk to Matt a little bit about what that means for him and how he surrounds himself with people that are doing or along the same journey as he is. So Matt, talk a little bit about financial independence. Like, why was that important, and how do you work along to ensure that you get there or you got there?
Yeah, well, it's a long road, right? They say it's kind of like the turtle in the hare, right? You got to do the right things over an extended period of time, and you get to a point where you just kind of got to wait. And so for me, when I started off, kind of my journey is I was a young dad. I was a terrified 21-year-old who had no idea what he was going to do with his life, and I had a baby on the way. And so I tried a different bunch of careers. I jumped into. I thought, hey, maybe I'll be a dentist. So I went into to try and do that. I didn't do too well on the dental exams, and so that wasn't going to work for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it was both good and humbling because I realized quickly that I wanted to be present as a dad more than I wanted to be traveling for dental school. And so what it did do, though, was it got me my foot in the door into medical device. And so that is where I spent most of my career. I kind of worked my way up. I was the guy going into hospital basements, counting plates and screws and reporting back to the hospital. And I did that for a long time and made my way up the ladder there. And eventually became kind of a global marketing leader at one of these companies. And it burned me out. And that's kind of where my story started, because I had tried all these different careers and I didn't really love any of them. I kind of did it because I had to, I was chasing the money, right? Like I knew that if I wasn't going to enjoy what I was doing on my day to day, that I had to find at least a path to get to where I didn't have to do it anymore.
Now let me pause you there for a minute, because I love how you said it was humbling, right? So you go from dental school to you said going in the basements counting something very different, you know what I mean? But I feel like it was you had to do what you had to do till you could do what you want to do kind of thing. So I feel like that's where you were like, okay, not dental, that didn't work for me, but I needed to do this because one, I need, I have a little baby that I need to
Yeah.
take care of. So I gotta, take care of the monthly expenses or whatever have you. But there's a lot of things. Why that? Why was it that? The counting of whatever you were counting in the basements.
Well, that just kind of fell in my lap, actually. And let me clarify, I did not get into dental school. I did
Oh, it
not
was an
get there.
interest. You didn't get in.
I was studying to get into it and realized that I wasn't going to pass these tests. I wasn't that smart. So I realized after that kind of foray, because I had gone back to college thinking, "Oh, I'm going to be a chemistry major," and that failed horribly. So what I did do was I did odd jobs. I was helping a construction contractor. I was like an assistant there, trying to help out there. I was waiting tables, and I was working at old folks' homes. I was just trying everything I could.
Yeah.
And getting into medical device was a little bit of a fluke. I
Okay.
just happened to sit next to a gentleman on the airplane, and I was on my way to South Africa, and
Hmm.
he we had a great conversation for like 6 hours, and so when I landed back in the U.S., I wanted to try and do something, so I reached out to him, and he ended up getting my foot in the door at medical device. No other reason than just happened to be at the right place at the right time there. But again, I was just chasing the money. It wasn't like I particularly loved that job.
Yeah.
It was very, very hard, especially as I got further up into the rankings there. And I talk a lot about on my podcast with my wife. There was a point where I hit a wall. I physically and mentally couldn't do it anymore. I actually started having pretty high anxiety and panic attacks. And so there was
Mhm.
yeah, it was a hard realization, right? Because we're on this journey, and
Yes.
we're trying to get to a point of financial independence and comfortability, but we were a decade away. And I had consistently over 10 years of my career, or actually I guess close to 15 years of the career, had been trying to work towards maxing out our retirement accounts. So typically in the financial independence community, they say, as you can, max out your 401k, max out your Roth IRA, max out your HSA. And I never made it. Like we got close towards the end of the career there. We were finally able to start doing some of those activities with kind of what we call a bigger shovel, but it really took a toll on my mental capacities, and so I
Yes.
I had to take a break, and luckily, because of certain tools, and because we had done the right thing for so long, when I finally, my wife told me, "Hey, you know what? We can take a step back. We can try something different. We have the ability to do that." And it was because of her that I even entertained it. And so it was a blessing, and I'm really grateful that we were able to take that leap. It's definitely been the right choice for us, and so I attribute that transition from kind of working 80-hour work weeks to be able to work something that I enjoy more, purely to Qube Money. And I know that I'm kind of sporting that shirt, but
Yeah, well, I want to. I got to pause because I got to give the wife,
please.
a big up to the wife, a big up to the wife.
Oh yeah,
I
no,
love
huge
that.
snaps
So
to
wives are
Yana. She's amazing.
amazing. Wives are amazing. Women are amazing. Women are amazing. So wait, so before we go on to go to the resources and what you did to support where you are right now, I want to go back to, because as people are thinking about this journey, there are people that are working right now, working 80 and even sometimes more hours in a given period of time, that they are just exhausted. You mentioned physically exhausted people, or mentally exhausted people are just dealing with a lot of different things that comes with the stress of all of what you're talking about. It could be the number of hours, it could be the anxiety of you needing to go back in the office, it could be the traffic that they have to endure both ways, all of that stuff. But for a while, it sounds like 15 years maybe or so that you did that. And then you defined when you did make that change, it was called a leap, right? So talk to me a little bit about, because it's one thing that your wife just come up to you and say, yeah, we can do it. And then you say, okay, boom, let's go. Like, how did you go from, okay, this, even though it was anxiety driven, it had agina going on, it had some like I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired every day, it was still what your normal was, right? That was your
Right.
everyday. How did you, to talk about going from and getting prepared to actually making a leap versus she's saying it and then you're just doing it? Because I know it probably wasn't that easy. How did you go from that?
Yeah, great question. So I didn't think that I had a way out, if I'm
Mm,
being frank. You know, I was trying to provide for my family. Have been trying. I got two kids now, and we're trying to make sure that they were comfortable. And we had this lofty goal that, you know, admittedly I set of having the ability to be financially independent, and we were a decade or so away from that.
and that's a dollar amount. That goal is a dollar amount you're talking about.
Correct.
Okay, you
That
had a
that goal is a
dollar
dollar
amount
amount.
that was lofty in your mind that you had
Exactly.
to reach before you can leap or do
Yeah,
anything. Okay,
you're
got it.
exactly right.
Okay.
And so my wife was the one though that came to me after kind of running the numbers, say,
Hmm.
and she realized that we had hit a marker called Coast Fi.
Hmm.
And what Coast Fi is for your audience out there who might not be familiar with financial independence, it's the first step in the Fi ladder. And so what it means is that we had accumulated enough in our retirement accounts to where we didn't have to add more. We just had to wait and allow compounding interest to do its thing. And so, I'm 30, I'm 39 right now, or just about. And, come 55 or so, if I do nothing but just allow the market to do what it's doing, in theory, and the probabilities are on our side that we'll hit our retirement number come 55. And so she brought that to the table, and it made us realize, hey, you know what? If we don't have to, contribute to these retirement accounts anymore, what that means is that we don't have to work these high stress jobs. We have the ability to step back and just cover our living expenses. And we have done a very good job of understanding what it takes our household to operate and to be comfortable. And so if we stopped having to worry about retirement, that cuts out a huge chunk of where our money was going. And so now I could say, hey, I'm going to work, a part-time job for a little while. And as long as we're covering X amount for our yearly annual expenses, then that's okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. It doesn't add more to the to that retirement bucket, which is what I was so amped up in
Mhm.
doing. But it allowed us to breathe a little
Mhm.
bit, and yeah, I mean, I know we're giving snaps to my wife, and I attribute so much to that woman. She's
All
amazing.
snaps
So
to the wives, all snaps to
all
the
snaps
wives
to the
and
wife.
women. I call it wives and women, wives and or women. So okay, so you found that you were at I'll call it the number where you're at coast five, so that you're coasting to the next level,
Yes.
and you decide to make the decision. Right. So, because even though she brought it to your attention, you had to also, I call it, buy into it, if you will. And then you did. And then what were you using Qube Money, which is the resource that you've talked about? Were you using that before you made the leap,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah. Actually,
and then what about Qube Money was the what about it was the tool that ended up being the one you used? Because there's a ton out there. Why Qube Money? So if you could talk about, okay, yes, okay, wife, I agree with you. We're gonna do this. And then what did you do? And then how did you what the research that you went through, and then just finally decide on Qube Money?
yeah. Another good question. So I was a finance nerd, ever since I realized I had to afford, daycare as I was going to work. So I've been very anal about keeping a spreadsheet. And I started with Excel spreadsheets, and that's probably where I am most comfortable. I spent a lot of time, exporting all of my banking transactions from my credit cards and my, bank accounts, and I would put them into an Excel spreadsheet, and I would create pivot tables, and I say, okay, I spent this much on groceries, and I would do that, and I did that for years. I think I calculated this like 6 years, even into when my wife and I got married. We were doing this together as best we could. Once a month, we would export everything, and we try and evaluate, and we tried a couple different tools too. I mean, I tried YNAB, and
So
my
you
wife.
need a budget. YNAB is you need a budget. Okay, go
Correct.
ahead.
It's another budgeting
Yep.
software. I've tried that. We've done Personal Capital and Mint and all of those, and they have different tools and things that are helpful. But when it comes to actually managing your day-to-day expenses, uh, we were having a hard time with it, to be honest. We kept because all of those tools are retroactive in the sense that I'm spending, and then I look at the end of the month and I'm like, oh shoot, we still overspent. and
Okay, I have to pause you right
yeah,
here again, Matt, my friend. And just because we talk the same language, I want
yeah,
to bring people with us. Because I'm following you. And this is one of the most important factors that I try to get across to people is using tools um, that give them the backwards, the view in the rearview mirror. Like that's better than not having anything, I
true.
guess, right? Because you personal finance is just that you have to use what works best for you. But in the effort that you're trying to get across here today that helped you get to the place that you are, the backwards view is not as helpful. I guess I want to say it that way. And tell me when you realize that, to now go into, because I want to make sure that I stop to say that, like it's really important, as in case they missed that those were telling you after it's done and where you are and what you did, as opposed to where you're going to hear now. So now go ahead and then how you continue to do your research and finally make your decision.
Yeah, well, up until that point, my goal for the family was to try and have as high of a savings rate as we could.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime that we overspent in a category that we weren't aware of, it would deduct our ability to add money into these retirement accounts to help us get to that goal. And so, after trying all these other tools, after spending hours every month, kind of coming through this and having kind of some, headbutting situations. And I say this a lot on our show because, only one person can really be in Excel at one time,
Yeah.
and the other person doesn't really want. I'm like, we're sitting at the table together, but it's like hours, and she's kind of looking to me at the end of it, going, okay, I know we overspent everything, but can I go out to eat with my friends? And like
Yeah.
that's not a place that anybody as a partnership should be in, because I don't want to be a gatekeeper of the
Yeah,
money that we collectively are making. It
exactly.
created a lot of anxiety and animosity, and it was just not a very efficient way of budgeting for us.
Yes.
And so I actually had stumbled on Qube Money back in 2020. It was at the remote FinCon conference. I was the nerd that logged into some
I
silly,
did too.
financial expo, in my desk here, and I noticed that they were one of the sponsors, and so I had like, what is this? And I looked it up, and it sounded really great in the sense that it took the concept of cash envelope budgeting, which we actually were very familiar with because we took the Dave Ramsey classes and things when we first got married, and cash envelopes are great. You take your envelope, you write groceries, and you write bills and date nights on it, and you shove cash in them, and when you go out to eat, well, that's the only envelope that you use. And so that worked for us. It was extremely effective. It was horribly inefficient though, because having to carry wads of cash with you everywhere, and what if we left something in the car and it got stolen, or we dropped it? It just ended up being really it didn't work for us long term. So when Qube Money came on the scene, we saw this, and I actually had Yana, who at the time was not a financial nerd at all. She was what was called like a free spirit. She doesn't want to live with these constraints. She wants to be able to go and spend and enjoy kind of her life and the money that she's earned. And I give her kudos. Whereas because of that, I was the opposite side. I was like, I'm not spending a dime. I'm not going out to eat if I don't have to. I don't want to spend any money on a shirt. Only free stuff. That's my jam.
Yeah.
But Qube Money allowed us to kind of come together because it takes the concept of cash envelope budgeting and it makes it digital.
Yeah.
And so I asked her, hey, why don't you give it a shot? I'm not even going to get involved. If it doesn't work for you, like we tried YNAB, it did not work for her. And I didn't want to be responsible for having to categorize all those transactions in the month. So I said, hey, why don't you give Qube Money a shot and you let me know. We'll try it out for a couple months. And so she did. She tried it out, and I think after a couple of weeks of getting the money in there and kind of, you can make unlimited envelopes, and so there are all these sinking funds in there, and we started creating stuff for like kids camps and travel and things that we wanted to try and save for, but didn't have enough bank accounts to do. I mean, at one point, Patrina, I actually had like 5 or 6 bank accounts with debit cards, and I would have duct tape written on them saying this is our grocery, this is our gas card, and that's how anal I was trying to control it all.
Wow.
And it was that was too much. But Qube made it real easy, and all of a sudden because we knew what we were spending every month and what we wanted to be able to spend, all of a sudden, when we export the money from our paychecks into Qube, and we determine the amount to each of those categories, and we automated it, that means like every other week, groceries is filled up again, date nights are filled up again.
All right, hold on. I'm
Yeah,
going to pause you there again.
please.
So, one, I too use budget envelopes. I can't tell you how fabulous they were for the time that I used them, which
Sure.
was, a while ago, but very effective for me for the same reason. And I still believe, though, there's something psychologically about the reduction in the money in the envelope that actually gets you to see that you're spending more in a category than you likely maybe can do it a little bit differently. That was my real life story. I tell that a lot when I'm presenting. So that did work for me as well. For the same reason, I'm a fan of Qube for where you're about to go with this is that number one, I rarely carry cash. Like, so, using that process or that methodology is not an ideal because that's not my everyday way of how I do things now that I'm at a different place with my money and how I transact. So that's not ideal. But I want to make sure that people understand that that can be an effective way. And what we're talking about here today is something that we encourage you to take a look at. But again, personal finance is personal. You have to take baby steps into many different things. And then Matt is going to go into a bit more detail of how Qube Money works that can liken to the budget envelope so that if you are not that money and you're having a hard time with trying to take money out and put it in an envelope and use it in that way for the various reasons he mentioned, this is a wonderful alternative to that. So I want to talk a little bit about just make sure that I bridge that gap for people
Hmm.
because people still consider cash in the way, and especially in today's environment with everything going on and people having access to stuff, people are thinking that going back to that method. But I want you to hear about one that you're going to hear him talk about the less anxiety, the less the more time that you can have in your day because you're not having as many hours as he's talked about that he had to manage money. And then especially if there's a partner in the situation, whatever that may be, it may be a husband, a wife, a best friend, a significant other, whatever that person is. If you're doing things together financially, how this also supports that. He shared a little bit of his personal story. So now, Matt, with that setup, then go into Qube Money and what the mechanics, I'll call it the operations of how they would have to do it, and then get it in the envelope, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm all about trying to simplify my life, right? I want to automate as much of the tasks that I don't really want to spend time doing
Yeah.
as I can. And one of the kind of feathers in the cap for the financial independence community is everyone has learned that if you automate your contributions to your retirement accounts, you don't have to worry about it,
Yeah.
right? It's no more emotion coming out of your paycheck. It's just like, hey, you know what? It's automated. It's going where it needs to go, and it just grows over time, and you just wait.
I say automate it and forget about it.
Yeah, exactly. Set it,
Yeah.
forget it. Same concept. And
Yeah.
so we took that same concept and we said, okay, well, let's apply that to our day-to-day spending.
Yeah.
And so, Qube is a unique tool because it makes your spending kind of mindful.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I can automate it like I was getting to where I have, X number of dollars come into that account. It splits out into all the buckets that I, and my wife want to spend. And what it's allowed us to do is it makes it so spending isn't stressful. It's actually, you can enjoy, because for me, I was the nerd, right? Like I didn't want to spend any money because I wanted to prioritize other things. But Yana, my wife, she's like, well, I want to prioritize going out and on vacations with you.
Yeah.
And so what happened is we started putting a couple $100 a month into a travel cube. And then, every 6 months or so, there's, enough in there for us to go and go on a trip, and it's guilt-free spending.
That's right.
And so that concept is now for every category, like haircuts, t-shirts. Like I can buy a t-shirt now because I know that there's
Now
some,
you don't just have to wear the ones you get at conferences, right?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still load up on free t-shirts. That's always who I'm gonna be, but I'm not guilty about buying a sweater when I'm cold anymore.
Okay, so you're too funny. So Matt, let's go to I love it. So okay, both of you put money into Qube, and then talk about the mechanics of it going. So you talked about there's different cubes, and you can call them whatever: vacation, t-shirts, sweaters,
Yeah.
going out to eat with your girlfriends. how does the money when you deposit it in, how does it automatically go into those categories? Do you set the percents, but when you get this deposit, split it 5 ways? Do you tell it that inside
Yeah.
of Qube? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I've been using this program now for 5 years. So like I live and breathe it. I use it every day. So I
Yep.
forget sometimes the mechanics. So yeah, if you're just new to this concept, it starts off with essentially a one page on their website. Like if you go to cubemoney.com, it has a dashboard like a playground. And
Yep.
so you
And
can
that link will
actually,
be down below. So you can grab the Qube link down below.
yeah, exactly. And again, it's hard to talk about this without it sounding like a sales gig. This has honestly changed our lives because it's made spending enjoyable for both of us, and it really has taken the pressure off of us. We
Yeah.
we we have prioritized the things that are important in our lives by actually putting money into these cubes and spending from them. We no longer have to worry about it anymore. And I could talk about this for hours, Patrina, because like there are so many features in this program that we use. Like the bill side of it is so exciting, and I'll talk about that in a second. But let's get back to the concept.
So get the money.
All right, get back to the
You
concept.
have the money coming in,
Yes.
and
So
then it go. How does it know how to split itself up within the cubes that you have set and
yes.
you're prioritized?
So the way that we first started is we put, I think it was like a couple $100. We had it transferred from our bank into Qube because Qube itself, it has an underlying bank to it. So you're taking money from your existing bank account and you're transferring it to Qube's bank account. And then you determine, let's say you're putting in, $300 just to try it out. And you're saying, okay, I'm going to put $200 into a grocery cube, which is like a grocery envelope,
Okay.
and $100 into date nights. And that's honestly where we started. That's where Yana said, you know what, we're having a hard time controlling, these variable funding categories. So we're going to start with just 3 categories and see how it works.
Okay.
And that's what she did. And so every month, actually, we can determine how often we transfer money, into Qube. So we did it every other week because we liked being able to have a kind of a refresh of those categories. And so it took the pain off a little bit. But we were able to control how much we were spending on groceries. And so we put that into Qube. And then every time we go to the grocery store, I literally have my debit card right here. This is my Qube card. It's a Visa card. I open up my app when I'm at the grocery store in line. I choose my grocery card. And what happens is that debit card has $0 on it at all times until I press which Qube I'm going to spend from. And so then it transfers instantly my grocery budget to that card. I give it to the grocery clerk vendor and it deducts it in real time. It updates that balance in real time. And so as I'm walking out of the grocery store, I got my, bags in my hands. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't have to
That's like the
reconcile
cash
anything.
envelope that you had titled groceries that you'd have the money. You've on your app, you've opened that envelope to pay for your groceries by way of clicking that to
Yeah.
go on the card.
And as soon as that's spent, it's updated for everybody in the family. So Yana knows how much we have left in groceries. And if I want to walk down the street and take the kids for ice cream, I've got a kids entertainment fund that I've put some money into. I can go down, I'll press that fund, and it transfers the same amount to that Visa card, and it transfers the remaining balance back to the Qube, and this is zero. So like it gives you that autonomy to just live your life. And because we have determined, like we set up a budget together
Well,
once.
I like wait, live your life guilt free because you've
Yeah.
budgeted how much and you're using it from what you have allocated within your budget. That's what you want for those items. I want to make sure that we like just pause there a moment because oftentimes people and you know that likely know this as well, people think the term budget is like restrictive and it's not going to allow me to do what I want to do. What I love about Qube is that you were doing, to your point, Yana said, I want this, like, I don't care, we can do whatever, we could coast FI, do whatever, but I'm going out with my girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
So you prioritize that and made a bucket so that the money goes in there. She goes, you don't have anxiety because you're the money nerd. She's enjoying herself. She's worked really hard and she's doing what she likes to do. And you've allocated the money accordingly. And she's not going to the children fund. She's not going to the groceries. She's going to the category that has been set aside by the two of you for her to do that based on what you think makes sense within your overall budget. So I
Yeah.
love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, so it's important to note that my wife and I have been married for 10 years now, right? So
Mhm.
we've had a lot of those conversations where we tried to figure out what's important to each other, and making sure that we're prioritizing what she values and what she wants to spend money on is just as important as what I value, what I want to spend money on. And so we decided on paper first, like, well, actually on my Excel sheet, like, what categories, are we going to put money towards? And the beauty of Qube is I took that Excel sheet budget that we had been living on for so long. I just said, okay, well, here's our categories. And because we had done that work, we created a budget that we agree on together collectively. Once I loaded it to Qube. I automated the transfer to each of those buckets, and I'm done. I honestly, I haven't had to think about it
Yeah,
for years now.
yeah,
Since we've adopted Qube since 2020, we have never overspent from our budget.
yeah.
And
I love it.
now I think it's important to note, like, if there are things that pop up, like randomly throughout the month or the year, we can transfer money in between categories within Qube at any time easily, but we're never overspending the collective amount that's in that we determined can go into Qube. And so we might have, hey, a birthday party pop up for the kids and we want to run out and get them something, or somebody's in town and we want to be able to take them out for dinner. That's fine. Like, we'll move money from, kids entertainment or pet care or whatever, into these other categories. That's no problem because collectively at the end of the month, it's still the same amount.
Well, and that's so. Let us touch on that. So again, this is tying back to the overall budgeting. It's not about being restrictive. And to your point, something pops up. The kids, I love using this one. Oh, mom, we have to. We got a bake sale. When is it? Tomorrow. You know what I mean? So that's not something planned. And maybe like regardless if you go buy them or you make them, you got it. It's not something that you had budgeted for, if you will. So you have full out. So one, it's your money, right? So you see it in there. If you need to, you've exhausted one category, you need to move from another. You have the opportunity to do that. Like, number one, it's your money. You've allocated accordingly. The point that he made though is at the end of the day, you're not going over what you had in there. So if you moved whatever number, whatever the dollar amount is from another bucket, all that means is for that particular bucket, there's a new number there. And maybe whatever you had there as I don't know, you said pet food. Okay, so now the pet food, you buy less of it this week because in 2 weeks you can buy more because the category is going to replenish. Whatever that is, the point is you're empowered to do what you want to do with your money. You put the dollar amounts in there, and if things come up and there's dollars in the buckets, you can reallocate, and just you have to adjust your thought process of what you were going to do with where you took the money from. So that's one of the things that I want to make sure that's coming through here. It's
Yeah.
like once you set it, and to his point, forget about it. It doesn't mean you do not have the access to change what you had originally set. Now, the goal is not to do that regularly. The goal is that you put in the dollar amounts in there based on what you typically do in a given month or a given pay period. But it's about trying to stay. So if you, and I like to always say this, if you mess up, right, then, but you're better than you were before. You're going off the journey a little bit better than before. You have another resource that you can consider to help you be consistent. And the more you do it, the more you can refine things and or ask questions on somebody that's doing it really well that can help you along with that as well. So
Yeah.
again, automate it, get it over there, put it in the buckets, and then be what I call stress-free, guilt-free, more time back in your day. So go ahead,
Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah. Well, as you were talking, I just pulled up my app. I mean, I don't know if you can
I
see
love it.
this. It might
No,
be
but
might
bring
be
it over
worth.
a little bit to the left. Yep, right there.
Yeah, so I mean, these
So
are
those are
all
the
my
buckets.
actual categories, my wife and I. And so at any moment, I can just pull up, like, I'm going to go to, take her out to eat. So I'll just click on my restaurants Cube and I open it up, and then it transfers that full amount onto my wife and I's card, and that's how we
Yeah.
spend. And so, you mentioned messing up. It's true. In a normal budget, if you overspend your budget, you kind of failed for that month, right? Like, you kind of, it's disheartening.
Yes.
But with Cube, I don't fail. It's you can't fail. It's still let's say I have $1,000 that I'm transferring to spend all my accounts.
Buckets. Yeah.
As long as I don't overspend that $1,000, which I can't, I can move my buckets around. And like last night, for example, I had just gone grocery shopping, and it was a long day, and I did not want to cook, and
Mhm.
so I I just went and I just ordered, sushi with my wife, and we didn't plan on that, but I had extra money in my other categories that I felt comfortable moving around. And in fact, we actually created a buffer account, like a cube count,
Yeah.
cube number that we had. My wife named it. It's called Buffer the Vampire Cube, and we put a couple $100 in that.
Yeah.
And this is how I use it, right? So what we do is we have a couple $100 in that cube, and so if something pops up that we weren't planning for and it's not in our other cubes, well, we'll just spend from that buffer cube.
Yeah.
And then at the end of a couple months, I'll go back in and look at the transactions that we spent in that buffer cube, and I'll be like, oh, wow, haircuts. I didn't think about that. Well, I create now a cube for haircuts.
I love it.
And so
I
it's
love
allowed
it.
me to kind of like step by step get to a point where we don't have any surprises, or at least aren't able to count for them. And so, over time we've started creating goal cubes and things like, like my wife's, we drive really old beater cars that have a lot of problems with them, but we still, we put money into this car fund with the hope that at some point we'll have enough to either repair the cars or get a new car at some point, not a new car, but a newer to us car. And, I talked about having vacations. Like I put a lot of travel goal cubes in there. So every month we transfer, I think it's like, I don't know, $150 or something into a travel cube. And so when a deal comes up that we want to go to, or maybe a surf trip with my friends pops up, I can just open up my travel cube and I can spend it guilt free,
I love
which is a
it.
great way to live,
It is.
Yeah.
And again, reduce is, I'm not going to say you're going to get rid of stress, but it reduces stress, right? Because
Yeah,
money
for
can be a
sure.
stressor. And especially when you have, like, I love the fact that it's your combined story. And then one thing was more important to her than it was for you. And you found a way to, have harmony with the both of you. And while she still can do what she wanted
Yeah.
to do, and you still accomplish what you wanted to.
Yeah.
So, most of what we've been talking about relative to the cubes have been what I'll call the wants, if you will. So the things that people have to do, like the light bill, the gas bill, etc. Do you use Cube for those things as well, or just for the want things like you pulled up, the going out to eat, the all that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. I use Cube for everything.
Oh, okay.
Our whole lives run through Cube, and it started off small because I'm cautious. I didn't know what to trust.
Use budgeted envelopes for those things.
Mhm.
I use my budgeted envelopes for the other stuff, like the going out to eat, the Starbucks. Like I
Agreed.
literally had a Starbucks envelope, like because I
Yes.
was that bad with it at the time. So you okay? Talk to us about that because
Yeah.
I don't use it today for that. So talk to me about that.
So with your variable categories we just talked about, like all the things that we have control, and like if you don't have enough money for going out to eat, that's okay. You don't spend out of your grocery cube, or you don't put money into that grocery cube. But for bills, there's a whole section within Cube itself called a bill cube.
Mhm.
And this is probably one of my favorite things about it, because I started putting bill cubes, and what it is, okay, let me slow down. So a bill cube, every single bill cube has a unique card number and account number tied to it. So if I wanted to say I'm going to create a Netflix bill, right? It's
Yeah.
$16 a month or something. I will tell the bill as I'm creating it within Cube, this is for Netflix. I'll choose my little, colors and picture
Mhm.
for it. And it's $16 a month. And I say, I only want it to pull out $16 a month. That's all I'm going to transfer to this cube. And I go into netflix.com and I give it this unique debit card number that Cube itself has generated for that bill. And so when I log into Netflix, it only has that unique card number, and it will pull out, $16 a month, as I say, it's a monthly bill. And what that means is that Netflix will never, ever, ever have access to anything else in my banking world. You
But
know,
the
uh,
cube account number that you've assigned it.
exactly. I have so many good examples of this. So I had a gym membership at,
Mhm.
I'm not going to say the gym, but inevitably I was going for a couple months with a friend of mine from work, and I left, and I kind of fell off the wagon, and they were still charging me, every month. And they told me at the time, this is before Cube, that I had to come in on a Tuesday afternoon to talk to their manager to cancel my gym membership. And I was furious because I had to leave work to go and talk to this manager to have them stop charging me money. But with Cube, now I set up its unique bill number, its unique card number tied to that particular bill. I give the gym that bill number, and at any moment, I can pause it. within Qube. I can pause any bill at any time for any reason, and the vendor can't pull money out of my account. And so now when they say I have to come in on a Tuesday or whatever, I laugh at them. I just pause the bill. It's like, nope, I'm sorry, you're not getting any more of my money. I
Yeah,
cancel my membership. And I do the
you
same
have to
thing
come to
for,
me on a Tuesday to have me restarted.
oh, hey, listen, this Qube is changing the way that we do banking, because this is how it should be. You know, we shouldn't be chasing our money. I have another example for you. So I have a gas Qube that I pay all of our gas on, right? And because of the way that Qube operates, you have to open up the Qube to spend. Otherwise, nothing happens. And so now our gas Qube is a variable spending Qube. So anytime I go to the gas pump, I'll press the gas and I'll pay out that way. I have an instance. This has actually happened to me where I was filling up my wife's tank, and there was a card skimmer on that tank. So the scammer was trying to access that money. Now I filled up my tank for my wife's car, and I drove to the grocery store, and I started getting notifications saying, "Hey, you know, this vendor's trying to charge you, I think it was like $600." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "I'll deal with it later." And I'm driving, try to charge $500. And like every couple of minutes it kept going down and down and down. I think over the course of 48 hours, this scammer had tried to pull out like $1,500 out of our account. Not a dime, not a dime came out of our account, because
Because you
I
are, yeah, okay.
control the transactions. I approve everything before I spend it.
Yeah.
And so all I had to do, I didn't have to call up the bank and try and pull my money back, and because none of that. My money is secure. And so all I
So,
had to do was just say, "Hey, Qube, you know, this particular card number is now compromised. Please
mhm.
send me a new one." And I just switched to using my Apple Pay on, because like Apple Pay works for Qube as well, until they sent me a new card in the mail. I didn't have to chase anything back. It was simple. And that was actually the day that I realized, oh, I'm moving everything to Qube because
Well,
it
let's
was
talk
so
about
safe.
that, Matt. Let's talk
Yeah.
about that. So then some people listening may say, okay, oftentimes I share with them that you want to have money, money saved in other places. In order to rebuild credit, you have to kind of use credit and use it responsibly. So
Mhm.
now in your situation where you kind of like doing everything through Cube, how does that work with you and benefit you? As I say this out loud, I probably know what your answer is going to be, but as benefit you from that standpoint, because it's an account you're putting it in Cube, but it's not your bank account. It's an account that Cube has. Talk to us about what you, I don't want to say lose, but that you don't, that's not Matt's, but Cube's, that you, a person wouldn't, that'd be a different situation if they didn't have Cube. Relative to the money component and where it's sitting and the fact
Yeah,
it's being used off of that platform versus benefits that it can get somewhere else that can
sure.
help that person that's trying to establish credit and or high yield savings.
Yeah, great questions. And these are the same kind of things that I went through too. You know, before I fully adopted Qube, I was trying to chase credit card points.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I have friends who still do that. They open up like 10 cards a month, and they'll rotate and they'll start doing these credit card churning games, and that's a full-time job, and I didn't want any part of that, but I wanted some free stuff, you know. And so what sold me is I think last year Forbes came out with an article that said people who use credit cards typically spend between 8 and 12% more a month than those who don't. And so for me, I was like, I was enjoying Qube so much, and I saw that article, and I was like, I'll take an 8% cash back to have full control and to no longer have to stress about chasing points. And so for me, I don't use credit cards anymore. I take
Okay.
that back. I use one credit card, and what I do is I put my life insurance, my term life insurance on it, and I pay it off every month automatically, and I put it in a drawer. So it's like, you know, $40 a month. It automatically pays out of Qube for me because I can set it up. You know, I can pay my credit cards with Qube. That's all I do. And so I maintain my credit. I build credit, and I don't chase points anymore because it gives me peace of mind. And honestly, by having the ability to control where I spend my money, I prioritize now what I want to spend it on. So I'm not beholden to, you know, Delta changing their point structure, and or Hilton saying, hey, you know what, this costs, you know, 300,000 points, but you can only, you know, use this on a Wednesday or something. No, I just put the money in my little Qube account and I spend it and I go wherever I want to go whenever I want to do it. Now I fully agree that this isn't going to be everybody's, you know, game, but it is it is so peaceful to not have to worry about what the banks are doing. And, I'm a little bit anal about dealing with banks because I've gotten burned in the past,
Oh,
with fees and things, and financial advisors, I've been burned with them too. So I control my stuff.
yeah.
And the only reason, and I might be going off tangent here, but the only reason that these credit card companies can give you free points and free things is because there is some single parent out there or somebody struggling who wasn't able to pay their bill and is getting charged interest, and you are sucking that interest and now using it on points things, and they're still controlling the game. So
Yeah.
I left it alone. I said, you know what, we don't need this because honestly we're comfortable, we're happy, we're putting money where we prioritize it. And I wish my wife was on this call. We
Well,
talked about getting her
listen,
on
we're
here.
gonna talk about that. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's why I wanted to get you on this episode, because I know not only are you an employee of Qube, but you also are a user, and you were a user well before
yeah,
working for Qube. But
yeah.
the other important thing that I want to add to what you said was, because I had to ask that question because it's, pro. What are some of the other things?
Right.
And understand that it sounds like you are not, maybe, and even if you are, maybe not, let me not say it that way, but people can put the amount that they want into Qube. So it's not like all of your money is going there if that's not what you want. So the amount of money you're going into there is money that you are going to be using. So you're not having money just sit there that is in a different place other than somewhere that could be, I guess, that you could earn from higher interest bearing accounts. So just
Fair point.
understand that this is what I like to call it, electronic version of your operation account. So your checking account is your operations account that you're using all the time. You're probably using it regularly. So as quickly as it goes in there, within the week or two, it's coming out of there by way of those cubes. So think of it from that perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I touch on that? So
Yeah.
so how we have set up our whole money ecosystem is I started with all of the money that we were making goes into, we use Ally Bank for our like hub,
Yes.
right?
Hey,
So
Matt, we do the same thing. No,
hey there,
we
yeah. So I use Ally
also
Bank
have
because,
buckets.
well, because I tried the buckets thing for a little while before Cube, but I used it primarily because they had a good high yield savings
Mhm.
rate, right? So that's where I keep our emergency fund. And once we filled the emergency fund to an amount that we felt was appropriate, and we were automating our investments to like Vanguard and things, then anything in excess of our emergency fund, I put to Cube. And so
Mhm.
we filled our emergency fund, and now I have direct deposits going into Cube, and it fills up those buckets. And so that's how we've done it. Eventually, and I have some inside information here, like obviously, I could talk about why I'm with Cube, but
Mhm.
eventually that they'll be having high yield savings accounts as well, and that's when I'll just move everything personally to them because
Interesting.
I like the flexibility there. But I want to mention, like, yeah, I know that I work for Cube now, right? Like I'm a business development leader with them. I help them raise money because I believe in this product. I'm an investor in Cube myself, and when I left my high stress job, I had this like 6 month stint where I was taking a sabbatical, and I was looking for other things that I wanted to do with my time. And I looked at my wife, I'm like, I'm talking about Cube all the time. Like, I'm gonna reach out to these guys and see if I can get involved somehow. And so that's how I became an investor with them. And they're a smaller company and they're growing. And so
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be part of that. And so that's why. Just last year I started working with them and started doing this.
So
And
2020,
yeah,
2020 to 2024, you were a user prior to working. So I just want to make sure
yeah,
people
yeah.
understand, like, you were a user for multiple years before becoming an employee there as a satisfied customer, that you just, because of that, you was like, I just have to be a part of this company. I talk about it all the time. I love the work, and now I'm getting on the other side of it.
Yeah, and I hope my boss isn't going to watch this, but like I would do this for free. Like
Wow.
I fully believe that this program and this app can help so many people out there.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I started creating our show, right? Like
Yeah.
Coast by Couple is the show that we do together, and we talk all about how we've used Cube to help us get to this point of coasting.
Yeah, I love.
And
That's why I wanted to have you on the show. When you told
yeah,
me your story, I'm like, I have to have this on the show. And for those of you that don't know, the owner of Qube is a gentleman by the name of Shane. I met him in person, and we talked about many different things. And I was like, oh, I met a gentleman because Matt and I happen to live in the same state, in the same city, in the same state,
yeah.
and we met each other not too long before I met Shane in person. So it was like full circle. I'm like, I have to get these guys on the show. I have to get, I always bring forth resources to you all to help you along your financial journeys for whatever that may be. If you want to get to Coast Fi or financially independent, you can choose what's best for you. And it's about bringing forth information, not just from people that work there, such as Matt does, but people that are users like he was for many years before actually being an employee there. And, you always do your own research as well. But, when you have experts come to bring forth resources to you, take a look. If you haven't found something that works, this may be an alternative to help you along the way. And as he's shared that he and his wife did, you can tippy toe in it, right? You don't have to like put all your money in it. You can put it for the categories that you struggle with the most and see if there's some changes. Those changes may be nominal at first, and then you keep trying it and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I used to overspend on eating out. And since I've done this, I've only spent the amount that I put in there. So that's a way. Gas is another thing. Like that's another example. I'm sorry, not gas. That's not what I meant to say. Groceries is another good example because sometimes we overspend on groceries when you have a set amount, but then when you're in the store, you're physically walking down the aisles, you may go hungry. That bill becomes a lot larger than you originally anticipated. But when you do it this way, then you may, stay true to that number versus sliding your card. So Matt, we probably, because we financial nerds can talk all day long about finances and helping people understand and resources that can be beneficial to them.
Yeah.
But before we go, let them know again who you are, what you do, talk about your show. We're gonna drop your show link below as well. But just tell them where you're on your way to as well.
Yeah, yeah, great. Love doing these kinds of things. So yeah, I'm obviously Matt Tarr. I'm the co-host of the Coast Fi Couple podcast. You can find us on coastficouple.com or any podcast platform that you use. We're also on YouTube, and we're just at Coast Fi Couple. And
Yeah,
my wife
amazing.
and I, we do this together, right? And so we talk all about kind of the mistakes that we made along the way and how we've reached this point. And can I add one more point? Like the reason
Yeah.
that this journey of ours has been so easy. I say easy in a weird way, but it was a grind to get to this point. But when I left my job, because we had control with Qube, all I had to do was go in and change my categories by 10% or 20% because I wasn't making as much anymore all of a sudden, and we were still living our lives. We were still able to control it, and it's given us the power to be able to step away from things that we don't want to do and try and be risky, right? And try things that maybe we want to give a go. So anyway, I could talk about this all day, and I'm certainly grateful for the chance
That's
to
why I'm
speak with
like, oh
you.
my gosh, we're gonna talk. And the other thing for my husband and I think what we found is in our transition from where we were to where we are now, where you are as well, is that I think it was a sense of needing to have more all the time until we were in a situation where less was what the situation was, to the point where like, oh, we're living every day fine and like every day's every day. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't want to say we're minimalist because we are certainly not that, but it went from what we thought we needed to have in size and number of rooms and this and that to what we have, that still life is life. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think sometimes when we are doing the thing and it just becomes our norm, we're not, sometimes it's in our benefit to look at things that may be the new norm. And it doesn't mean less. It doesn't mean, it may be uncomfortable initially, but it may translate to some of the things that you're saying. Instead of the percentages that you have, there were lesser percent. The percent was less, but you were still living life and enjoying it, and you
Yeah.
guys were doing the things that were priority instead of trying to do some in all the categories. When really these many categories is really where your focus was, and now that is where your money goes. That's what you're doing, and that only comes with watching where your money is going, staying in tune with it, being on the same page about it. So I love that this has done this for you all, and hopefully those that are listening, even if you're not with somebody else that you need to do this to make harmony in your home, it also can help with you yourself and things that you want to do and prioritize to accomplish to get to that place as well. So I love
Yeah.
that.
It helps support good habits.
Yes.
Like Ramit Sethi, right? He talks about, spending lavishly on the things that you love. Like, nobody should judge anybody for spending on something that they love. If you really love, I think his example is coffee. If you really love coffee and you want to go crazy and buy $1,000 coffee machine, dude, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. But in doing that, make sure you cut mercilessly on the things that don't matter to you.
Exactly.
And I live my life by that. I'm prioritizing things I love, and I'm able to cut back on all these categories that I don't want to spend money on.
Yeah.
And can I leave you guys with one more example? Is that okay?
Why do you keep asking? Of course, Matt.
Okay,
Thanks for asking.
I got a whole bunch of them.
You can leave with one more.
So cable, right? Cable company, internet companies. I'm not going to say who I use, but I've been stuck with the one that I have for 10 years. And every so often, I think it's like every 6 months or so, their promotional period expires, right? And typically in the past, before Qube, what would happen to us is I wouldn't catch it. I would notice it, 5-6 months later that they've been pulling out, $120 extra than the bill that I thought I was paying. Well, not anymore with Qube, right? So when I set up my bill Qube for this internet, they only pull out what I sign up for. And so I'm controlling the bleeding. There's no more bleeding. And what it allows me to do is to renegotiate to a lower rate, to turn things off when I'm traveling that I know I'm not going to spend. It gives control back to me and to my wife. And so, I'm an open book when it comes to this platform, Patrina. So if there's questions that your audience has, I think I forgot to mention that you can reach me at Matt@Coastfi Couple anytime, and I'm happy to talk to you guys about this. It's been a life-changing experience for us.
Yeah, and Matt and I have talked about bringing his wife on because he's talked about her throughout this episode. She was unavailable to come with us today, but I think it may behoove us to have both of you on so we can hear from the perspective. And I'm dying to see you all talk about it together because your passion for it is oozing through the screen. So I want to see her face when she talks about it as well. So I'm hoping
she's
we
amazing.
can get that episode on soon. I'm sorry.
She's amazing. You're gonna love her perspective. I mean, she's the one that has made these big moves for us in the past, and it's just she's incredible. So can't wait to introduce her to the audience here.
Yeah, I love it. So Matt, thank you so much for being on, sharing, being very, very transparent about your own personal journey, your wife's journey along the spectrum of starting with Qube, tiptoeing, and now where you are today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And to the audience, the It's My Money crew, thank you so much. I appreciate you for keeping it locked in here with me, Patrina Dixon, the It's My Money lady. The resources that I find that are very beneficial that can help you, I'm always going to share them with you. So not only do I get to share it by way of grabbing the link below, you have my friend Matt here that's coming on and giving you his experience. And you could, if you do use Qube, let us know. What's your thought? Let us know about the episode. Let us know if you are a user today, let us know that as well. And if you begin using it, let us know what your thoughts are about it. We would definitely welcome that feedback, and I know Matt will as well. So thanks again for keeping it locked here. If you're new here, don't forget to drop down and hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube. And if you're listening to us on a platform, make sure you're following us on that one as well. I appreciate you, and make it a great day.